Some strikers score tap-ins. Others score spectacular goals. Very few can do absolutely everything. They can beat you with pace, beat you in the air, beat you with power, beat you with intelligence, finish with either foot, score from outside the box, or punish the smallest mistake inside it. Andriy Shevchenko did all of it. He wasn't simply one of the best strikers of his generation. He was one of the most complete centre-forwards football has ever seen. Once he saw the goal, he never panicked. He never rushed. He simply picked his spot and finished. Clinical, relentless, deadly. That's why defenders feared him. Because when Andriy Shevchenko got a chance, they already knew what was coming. This is the story of football's ice-cold assassin. Andriy Shevchenko was born on the 29th of September, 1976, in Verkhovshchina, just outside Kyiv. Growing up in Ukraine during a time of enormous change wasn't easy. Football became both an escape and a dream. From an early age, he stood out. Not because he was bigger than everyone else, or stronger, but because he always seemed to arrive exactly where the ball was going to be. Great strikers don't just react. They anticipate. Even as a young boy, Shevchenko possessed that priceless instinct. He joined the famous Dynamo Kyiv Academy, one of Europe's greatest football schools. This wasn't simply a place to develop talent. It demanded perfection. Training was relentless. Fitness levels were extraordinary. Every movement was analyzed. Every mistake corrected. The legendary Valery Lobanovsky believed football could be mastered through discipline and intelligence. His players became machines. Strong, fit, organized. Shevchenko absorbed everything. But he added something no coach can teach. The instinct of a natural goalscorer. Breaking into Dynamo Kyiv's first team wasn't easy. Competition was fierce. Yet once Shevchenko arrived, he stayed. Season after season, his reputation grew. League titles followed. Goals became routine. Defenders discovered there wasn't one obvious way to stop him. Stand too close, and he'd spin in behind. Drop too deep, and he'd shoot from distance. Show him onto his weaker foot. He didn't really have one. Every decision carried a risk. Against Shevchenko, there were very few right answers. Then came the night Europe would never forget. November 1997. The UEFA Champions League. Camp Nou, Barcelona. One of the greatest stadiums in world football. Dynamo Kyiv arrived as underdogs. Barcelona expected to win. Instead, they witnessed the performance that changed everything. Andriy Shevchenko scored a magnificent hat-trick. Not against an ordinary defense. Against Barcelona. Away from home. On one of football's biggest stages. Europe finally realized. This wasn't simply another talented young striker. This was someone capable of becoming the best in the world. The assassin had announced himself. The goals kept coming. Season after season. Competition after competition. His movement became almost impossible to predict. His first touch was immaculate. His acceleration explosive. His finishing merciless. He could score the spectacular. He could score the simple. It didn't matter. They all counted the same. Managers across Europe wanted him. Supporters dreamed of signing him. Defenders hoped they wouldn't have to face him. By 1999, the biggest clubs in Europe were competing for his signature. Everyone knew he was ready for the next step. The only question was, where? The answer was AC Milan, the home of Bercy, Maldini, Costa Curta, one of the greatest defensive clubs football had ever known. Ironically, they had just signed the striker capable of tormenting the very defenders they had built their reputation upon. Italy was the ultimate test. Serie A was widely regarded as the toughest league in the world for a striker. Every defender was tactically brilliant. Every chance had to be earned. Many world-class forwards had struggled. Some had failed completely. Could the young Ukrainian conquer the hardest league in football? Or had Andriy Shevchenko finally found opponents? Who could stop him? Football was about to find out. In 1999, Andriy Shevchenko arrived in Italy. For most strikers, Serie A was football's ultimate test. This was the league of Paolo Maldini, Alessandro Nesta, Fabio Cannavaro, Ciro Ferrara, Walter Samuel, some of the greatest defenders the game has ever seen. Space was almost impossible to find. Mistakes were punished instantly. Goals were precious. Many world-class forwards struggled to adapt. Some never did. Shevchenko needed just one season. From the moment he pulled on the famous red and black shirt of AC Milan, he looked at home. His movement was effortless. His timing impeccable. His finishing unstoppable. Week after week, Italy's best defenders found themselves asking the same question. How do you stop him? Get too tight. He'd spin in behind. Stand off. He'd strike from distance. Force him wide. He'd still find the corner. He wasn't predictable. He was complete. His debut season was extraordinary. 24 Serie A goals. The league's top scorer. In his very first year. Think about that. A striker arriving from Ukraine, walking into the toughest defensive league in the world, and immediately becoming its most feared goalscorer. It wasn't just impressive. It was almost unheard of. Supporters quickly fell in love with him. Not because he shouted the loudest. Not because he demanded attention. Because every week, he delivered. Goals against Juventus. Goals against Inter. Goals against Roma. Goals in Europe. When Milan needed someone to decide the biggest matches, they looked towards Shevchenko. More often than not, he delivered. His partnership with Milan's world-class players elevated the club once again. Andrea Pirlo's vision, Clarence Seedorf's creativity, Gennaro Gattuso's determination, Kaká's brilliance. Together they formed one of Europe's finest teams. At the very front stood the man every defender feared. One chance. One finish. Goal. Then came the 2002-03 season. The UEFA Champions League. Every round brought another challenge. Every round. Shevchenko answered. Milan reached the final against Juventus. An all-Italian showdown. 90 minutes couldn't separate them. Neither could extra time. It came down to penalties. The pressure couldn't have been greater. Thousands inside the ground held their breath. Millions watched around the world. Andriy Shevchenko stepped forward. Calm. Focused. Composed. He struck the winning penalty. AC Milan were champions of Europe once again. When the biggest moment arrived, the ice-cold assassin never flinched. Some players dream about deciding Champions League finals. Shevchenko actually did it. A year later, football rewarded him once again. The Ballon d'Or. The greatest individual honor in the sport. He had reached the summit. Officially recognized as Europe's best footballer. Not through tricks. Not through headlines. Not through controversy. Through goals. Relentless. Clinical. Match-winning goals. By now, defenders already knew exactly what Shevchenko wanted to do. The frightening part? They still couldn't stop him. Because great strikers don't just score goals. They create doubt. Every defender hesitated. Every goalkeeper second-guessed themselves. Every mistake became an opportunity. And Andriy Shevchenko rarely wasted opportunities. He had conquered Ukraine. He had conquered Italy. He had conquered Europe. There was only one challenge left. Could football's ice-cold assassin conquer England? After conquering Italy, there was only one major challenge left. England. In 2006, Andriy Shevchenko joined Chelsea, one of the biggest transfers in world football. Expectations couldn't have been higher. The Ballon d'Or winner, a Champions League winner, one of Europe's most feared strikers. Supporters expected goals. Lots of them. But football doesn't always follow the script. English football presented a different challenge. The pace was relentless. The physical battles never stopped. Injuries interrupted his rhythm. Confidence became harder to find. The goals still came, but not with the same regularity that had made him a legend in Milan. For the first time in years, the ice-cold assassin looked human. Many players allowed difficult moments to define them. Shevchenko never did. He remained the same professional, the same teammate, the same relentless worker. Because true greatness isn't measured only by your finest seasons. It's measured by how you carry yourself when things don't go your way. Eventually, he returned home. Back to Dynamo Kyiv, the club where everything had begun. Supporters welcomed back more than a footballer. They welcomed home a hero. Although his pace had faded, his instinct never disappeared. The goals continued. Young players learned from one of the game's greatest centre-forwards. His experience became just as valuable as his finishing. His international career deserves its own chapter. For Ukraine, Andriy Shevchenko wasn't simply their captain. He was their symbol, their inspiration, their greatest footballer. Time and again, he carried the hopes of an entire nation. No moment captured that better than the 2006 FIFA World Cup. Ukraine were appearing at the tournament for the very first time as an independent nation. Many expected them to struggle. Instead, they reached the quarter-finals. Shevchenko led from the front, scoring important goals, leading by example, showing the world that Ukraine belonged on football's biggest stage. For millions back home, he wasn't just a striker. He was a national hero. When his playing career finally came to an end, his influence on Ukrainian football didn't. He stepped into management, determined to pass on everything he had learned. The standards, the professionalism, the belief. He wanted future generations to dream just as he once had. So, what made Andriy Shevchenko so special? Was it the goals? Hundreds of them. The trophies? League titles? The Champions League? The Ballon d'Or? Or was it something deeper? He could beat defenders with pace. He could outjump them in the air. He could finish with his left foot, his right foot, from outside the box, inside the 6-yard area, one-on-one. First time, second time. However the opportunity arrived, Andriy Shevchenko almost always found the answer. Complete strikers are rare. Strikers who master every part of the game are even rarer. Football has produced many great goalscorers. Ronaldo, Van Nistelrooy, Batistuta, Henry, Shearer. But Andriy Shevchenko earned his place alongside every one of them. Not because he scored the most goals, because he could score every type of goal. That made him almost impossible to defend. Perhaps that's why defenders respected him so much. They knew exactly what he was capable of. They studied his movement. They prepared for his runs. They analyzed his finishing. It rarely mattered. When Andriy Shevchenko found space, the outcome often felt inevitable. Football will always remember the great goalscorers, but only a select few become the complete striker every young forward wants to emulate. Andriy Shevchenko was one of those players. Clinical, powerful, intelligent, relentless. A striker who could beat you in every possible way. That's why Andriy Shevchenko will always be remembered as football's ice-cold assassin. And above all, a true footballing icon.